Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Fall. Jersey Joe Archino back here, and welcome to my Premier League table series. And, of course, 9 days away from the start of the English Premier League. So as we get closer and closer every single day to the start of the league, I will be unveiling my rankings for how the league will finish in the top 10 of the table. If you missed the first episode, my number 10 team was Crystal Palace. And then, of course, after 10 comes 9, so we go with Stoke City in the 9th place. And 9th place is kind of interesting for Stoke City because when we kind of look at it, 3 seasons in a row, they finished in 9th place, so I don't really think there's any reason to believe that it would be differently this season. And it's one of those things where a club like Southampton, who was up in the table last season, I have dropping down, and then I think Stoke City kind of stays where they are because I kind of talked about this a lot in the first episode of this series, and I think you look at it, and from 7 to 1, that is where the meat of it is. That is where the best of the best in the Premier League lies, and after that, there's a considerable drop-off. But I think Stoke City is going to be what they've been, and that is a tough side to play against. And even last season, you look at what they did. They beat Manchester City, they beat United, they beat Chelsea, they drew against Spurs, and they drew against Leicester. So they have shown competence against the top clubs. They've shown the ability to hold their own. I just think that changes this season because when you look at a side like United and a side like City, it's going to be very unlikely for them to drop points against a side like Stoke with the managers that are in place there now. Even a side like Chelsea, who just had a really awkward and strange year last year with Conte in place, a guy who's such a person who focuses on the little details, every single little detail. I don't see them. They're definitely going to be much, much better, much more organized, much more improved. The locker room just turned on Mourinho there last year, and that was as big a part of anything as it was. But Stoke City, one of the signings you have to love is, of course, Joe Allen from Liverpool. I don't know if Liverpool ever really had the perfect fit for him there, but Stoke City is a side that, of course, will utilize him much better, and there's just a bigger need for a guy like Joe Allen there. And, of course, what he did in Euro 2016, I think that confidence has got to carry over for him when it comes to Stoke. But one of the things that, of course, they have to do well to get off to a good start is just that. Last season, they didn't register a win in their first 6 league matches, and that's something that, of course, they have to get off to a good start. And their schedule is kind of tough when you start the season for them. They get their first match at Middlesbrough, then they play Man City, then they play Everton, they travel to play them. Then they've got Tottenham, then they play Crystal Palace at Crystal Palace, then they've got West Brom, and then they play United, of course, making the travel to Old Trafford. But Middlesbrough is a very promising opening match for them. If you want to play City and United, the best time to do it is to get it out of the way early. Because I think after, it's going to take Guardiola and Mourinho probably until December, January, February to really get those clubs to be the mirror image of what they want them to be. So the time to play the top-tier giants is early in the schedule, and of course Stoke City does have that opportunity to play against a City and to play against United early, but that is really what it does come down to for them. It's getting off to a good start. I think when you look at what they did in 2015-16, 14 wins, 9 draws, 15 losses, I expect something very similar this season. They did beat City and United, like I said already, and Chelsea last season. I'm not sure if they'll be able to register wins against those top-tier ones. Maybe against a club like Tottenham they will, because I think Tottenham will have a struggle a little bit more this season. They're back in the Champions League, which of course is a place they want to be in, but when you haven't been there in a while and you have those matches on the Tuesday, and then you have that recovery time and getting ready for your Premier League match that weekend, and then when you add all the other matches and all the other competitions, it's not easy to have all that extra pressure and all that extra wear and tear on your players. And when you haven't been there in a while, I think sometimes that adds a little bit more pressure and adds a little bit more fatigue to your team. So Stoke City, I don't think will replicate success against the top-tier teams, but they will find newfound success against maybe a Tottenham and maybe a club like Leicester, who will still be very strong this year, but not, of course, the Premier League champions like they were last season. But Stoke City, it does come down to getting off to a great start for them. And Mark Hughes, their manager, I think is a guy where you look at them and they kind of have that smooth spot where they finished in ninth 3 years in a row. I think they make it 4 years in a row. And it's certainly one of those things where you'll be looking at the young talent that they brought in this summer. Of course, one of the big names they've brought in is one of the young studs from Egypt, from the Egyptian champions, Al Ali. And of course, I think kind of like Crystal Palace, where they do have an infusion of young talent. That's kind of something that Stoke City does have as well. And, of course, you're going to want to keep your eye on that young talent and see what they're able to register with that. But Stoke City is kind of an interesting one. And after this, we, of course, have my 8th team, which I'll unveil in the next series. But after number 8, I think it does really start to get exciting because it is really that tremendous drop-off from 7 and everyone else. After the 7th-ranked team in the table this upcoming season, you're going to really see a tremendous drop-off. There are clubs that are going to continue to develop and be on the rise, and I do think Crystal Palace is going to continue to get better. I think my 8th team, when I unveil it, you'll see will be getting much better. And Stoke City is one of those ones where they're kind of in between. They're not really going to climb any further than 9, but being in that 9 spot like they've consistently shown to be, I think that's what they are and that's what they will be. And, of course, there's sometimes nothing wrong with it. Sometimes you have to know what your identity is. You have to have your reasonable expectations. And for Stoke City, a 9th place finish is a very reasonable expectation to have for them. But until the next episode, Jersey Joe Archino here with the Sports Vault. Follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino and on Instagram, Jersey_Joe_Archino. And I'll catch everybody in the next season. Remember, 9 days until we see some Premier League action return.